Before we begin, I would like to welcome Mitali Agarwal, Lead Business Development and Community Engagement of CCOE Hyderabad, for welcome address.
Thanks, Aishwarya. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this another series of PrivSecSpotlight. And I'm sure you might be waiting for this. And this is our monthly initiative, as already Aishwarya briefed you. So we are looking at that how we can bring the industry expertise for both the students and also the working professionals, so that they can learn from the expertise of this industry expert who has spent years in aching those expertise in that particular area. And as you might be aware of, those who are already in the network of Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, as we call it CCOE Hyderabad, that we are hosting tomorrow. We have an inaugural of Great EPSEC Hackathon, which is to see that how the talents are shaping into the application security landscape. And as a part of that, this particular PrivSec Spotlight, we thought we will hear on application security. And that's how we are here to hear from Mr. Venkat Melam Garu. Thanks a lot for his time from his busy schedule to come on board to share what all are happening, what are the special things are works are happening in the area of DevOps, and how in future the student and professional can work beyond the existing benchmark and create new a new what to say the innovations, and the new research can come on board, so that we have a much more secure this cyber world. So without taking much time, as we are here to hear from Mr. Venkat Melam, so over to sir. Before we start the session with Mr. Venkat Melam, I request Aishwarya to just give us a brief about Mr. Venkat Melam. Aishwarya, over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Venkat Garu is Information Security Manager for GCC's India and Philippines and APAC BISO for Consumer and Community Banking Technology. He is also a sponsor for internal community engagement for Hyderabad Tech Center, driving talent development and communities of practice. He was also the head of CCB IPM engineering team in India, building core SRE practices by enabling modern engineering practices through monitoring, infra as code, and SDLC tool adoption. He joined Chase in retail technology services as an individual contributor in 2010 and grew as executive director and became head of CCB production management team in India. Before JPMC, Mr. Venkat Garu had a journey with Wells Fargo, TCS in diversified roles. He has an MCA degree from INTU Hyderabad. He also plans to pursue teaching after retirement. Just like us, he is also into movies and long drives and also agriculture. Please join us in welcoming Mr. Venkat Melam Garu. Over to you, sir.
Yep. Thanks, Aishwarya. Thanks, Mitali.
Welcome,
And thanks,
sir. Look
everyone,
forward
for
to hear from
joining
you.
us today. So, good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Yes.
you're not audible, sir.
Is it? 1 second.
Yes, we are able to see that.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
we are
sir.
able to hear you.
Okay, and my screen is up on sharing, right?
Yes, we are able to see your
Is it
screen.
good now? Is it good?
Yes, sir. We just not able to see now in presentation mode, sir.
Okay, so 1 second. Let me start sharing it again. Maybe I'll share the full screen. Earlier, I was just sharing the window. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it good now?
Now, yes.
Good.
Perfect, sir. Good to go, sir.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Mitali. So, hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Myself, Venkat Melam. Thanks for a very good introduction. Okay, and I'm actually happy to join all of you today The learning is always mutual. That's one of the reasons that we wanted to talk to all of you. While we learn in this conversation about DevSec PrivOps, I just wanted to give some brief understanding of what that is today. Before we start, actually, I just wanted to make sure I give you a disclaimer that whatever we're going to discuss today is my personal opinion, not a representative of my firm, okay, in any way, form, or shape. Okay, just want to make sure that you are aware of that. Okay, so with that, so I have been practicing DevOps for almost 15 years now in various roles and various firms, okay, and to various clients, okay. So DevOps has been a concept that have been there for almost a couple of decades. Maybe the naming has changed a little bit from like previous names like build engineering, release engineering. Then as the agile took his own scale, actually DevOps became more prevalent. Okay. Later came the security and privacy, which are actually the essential parts to do a early life cycle check-in than actually a later state. Okay. So that's when we actually transformed the standard DevOps pipeline into more of a DevSecOps and DevSec PrivOps. So today in our agenda, we are going to discuss what is DevOps, DevSecOps and PrivOps, okay, and why is it important to basically consider security and privacy in the early SDLC lifecycle rather than later. Okay, and at the same time, we will also learn around how can we integrate security and privacy into the standard DevOps pipeline. And we'll also talk about some of the integration techniques and the measures of success, okay, of how we can implement the DevSec PrivOps, okay, how you will be able to measure that success also. Of course, we'll discuss some challenges, we'll discuss what we can focus on, all these things. But before I get into the actual agenda, I wanted to just to do a quick pulse check of who are we as an overall community today. Okay, I see more than 100 folks joining me today, but I just wanted to do a quick check on, okay, who you are and what is your awareness on this DevOps concept. Okay, can we just do a quick Menti? Is everyone good with that? Either you can log in from your mobile or you can actually leverage your computers in front of you. You can log into your menti.com, okay, and then enter the code that is seen on the screen, 42869085. Is that visible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you see the first question, or you can just click on that thumb button so that we know how many players are ready. So if everyone is ready, I can actually pose the question. I can only see 5 people. I see 121 folks on the call. Okay. It is menti.com, MENTI. It's there on the slide. Let me put the slide back again. Okay. This one, menti.com, MENTI, and 42869085 is the code. You can put a name for yourself or you can just take the default one, whatever. There. Okay, is everyone ready? But I don't see the count is matching, like 126 people are here. Okay, so yeah, let's answer this question. Okay, who are you basically? Basically, are you a student? Are you a DevOps practitioner? Are you consider yourself an expert? Okay, I just wanted to understand. Oh, I think the question went so fast. Let me change the timing a little bit. Okay, maybe we can redo it. Okay, I don't want to. This particular question, I'm actually trying to redo it, but I see already majority of the folks are students and few practitioners. Okay, yeah. If you didn't get an opportunity to answer, okay, you can just type in also in the Teams chat. Okay, what's your status? Your student, practitioner, or expert. Okay, but let's move on to the next question. So I am familiar with any one of these concepts. Either you're not familiar, you can choose the none. If you are familiar with any of these topics, you can just choose either of these: DevOps, DevSecOps, or DevSecPrivOps. Okay, I see majority of the folks are not familiar with. I understand, that's why we need this session. Okay, and some of the folks who are familiar with and are already practicing can help me answer a few questions, especially the tough questions. Okay. Good. So that's a good thing. We can start at the fundamentals, and some folks are already aware of DevOps, and I see few folks with DevSecOps. That's a good thing. DevSecPrivOps, especially that includes privacy. Okay, no one is aware. Okay, but we'll discuss in the next 1 hour or so. Okay, another quick question, and of course this is the last one to begin with. Okay, what is the most important thing for you in your software delivery? Is it the speed, or the stability, or the security, or privacy? And basically you can rate all of them. Okay, at what level, what's your priority? Out of 5 you can rate them. What's your scale of priority? So security tops, that's good. So security, and then privacy, then speed, of course, like, okay, it's changing between speed and stability, of course. Which is good. Okay, thank you. That gives me a fair understanding of, okay, what are we getting into? Okay, so thanks a lot for that survey. That gives me a fair idea where I should focus in the next 1 hour. To reiterate, our agenda for today is we're going to talk about what is DevOps. And I see a lot of folks are actually probably new to this concept of DevOps. And what is DevSecOps and then PrivOps? And why is it important to consider security and privacy in early SDLC lifecycle? How can we integrate security and privacy into the DevOps pipeline? And also what kind of measures and integration techniques we can follow to make it a successful implementation. Okay. Good. Any questions before I start from anyone? You can raise your hand in Teams, okay, or put your question, okay, in case if you have any questions. Okay, so for now I don't see any questions, but feel free to stop me if you don't understand or if you have any questions at any point of time. Okay, and we'll have enough time at the end for Q&A. Okay, so what is DevSecPrivOps? Okay, before we talk about that, I want to give a little bit debrief of, okay, what is the standard way of development actually? Of course, from a definition perspective, if you look at it, DevSecOps is more of a integration of these 4 different things, which is development, security, privacy, and operations, into one cohesive framework to ensure security and privacy are integral parts of your development and operational processes. Okay, so that's the standard way. But if you look deep, okay, we need to look back at how are we developing software throughout these years or over the decades. If you look at the initial days, the standard development methodology, we have a traditional methodology called waterfall methodology. Okay, I'm sure you might have already gone through in your academics or you might have been already practicing it, right? The standard waterfall methodology is really good, okay, for something that you want to deliver in the long run. So let's assume you have the standard phases. You always collect the requirements first, and you will design your software, and then you develop or code your software. Then you test it. Finally, you will release it, or you will actually make it live. But as per the waterfall methodology, it is basically what we call it as a model-based methodology that you need to strictly follow the model, okay? Where you need to complete all your requirements, then you can start all your design, and then your coding, and then your testing. So let's assume you have a big project, which is a huge commitment that you have with your client. You wanted to collect all the requirements. Typically, it will take 3 to 6 months, okay, to collect all your requirements, and you translate all your requirements into some form or shape or into some requirements document. Then you start designing as per those requirements to answer all or majority of those requirements, which eventually will take another 3 to 6 months. And then you will start developing or coding as per the design that you have done. And it will be another 6 months, okay? Then you will actually hand it over to your testing team saying that, okay, I have developed the code, now you go test it. Then as the testing team starts testing it, okay, then you will start seeing a lot of issues. Can someone speak? You're not speaking. Can you go on mute, please? Okay.
Done, sir. You can go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So if let's say you have given it for testing team, obviously they'll start testing, okay? And usually in the testing, you will have some standard phases of testing. One, the integration testing, which is in general, we will try to combine all the individual pieces developed and try to see where all the pieces are working together or not, okay? And the next testing is the user acceptance testing. In that, usually you will try to map your performance or maybe whatever the requirements that was given in the requirements phase to the actual end product, okay? So is it functioning as per the requirements or not, or whatever the product that you're developing? So that way you'll try to make sure the users are accepting whatever the features that you have developed in the product. So in this testing process, obviously there will be a lot of iterations because everything and anything will not go straightforward in one go. As a pass, obviously you will have some bugs and issues that you will raise and which will be fixed again by the development team and the cycle will move on. So a couple of opportunities in this development methodology is that, okay, we can actually get into the next slides where we can also look at the traditional development. So focuses mostly on this building features and delivering updates. That's one of the things that the traditional development methodology, primarily the waterfall, and then later few development methodologies like spiral and other things will come up. As we discussed all these phases, traditionally in the waterfall methodology, it will take usually a year and a half, or sometime more than that, to your client or someone who has given this project to realize that whatever they asked for is not what you're delivering. That's one of the biggest challenges that we usually face. So your client has given the requirements or awarded the project. After 1.5 year, whatever you're going to deliver them, sometimes it may match or sometimes it may not match the exact requirements. But for the client to realize that they're not getting what they asked for, it will take more than 1.5 year, which is actually a huge gap. Okay. And also in the meantime, the market may change a lot. So these model-driven developments are actually not so great, especially when you're in a competitive market. Okay. So that's one of the opportunities in the waterfall model. Later, what happened was some of the companies have come up with spiral models, RAD-based model, prototyping models. There are various development methodologies that they've came up with, which is basically subdividing this particular whole monolithic project into small modules or pieces, but doing the same iteration of collecting the requirements, designing, development, and testing in small units. But the challenge there was, again, you are not actually giving a usable end product for your client. Okay. Let's say I have asked for a car. You can't deliver me tires in one iteration, engine in another iteration, chassis and seats in a different iteration, which is not useful in any way. Okay. So the traditional development methodologies, one, it is actually taking a lot of time, okay, to build the actual features of the product that the client needs. The second, it's basically not engaging all the teams at once. If you look at the standard waterfall methodology, when the development team is busy, all other teams are probably idle, unless until they have something else to do or a different project to do. Okay. When the requirements team is collecting the requirements for the first 6 months, rest all the teams will be idle. Okay. So that way you are not effectively utilizing your teams as well. One, you are investing more on your project. You're not utilizing it well. At the same time, your client is not getting a benefit of looking or seeing the features or seeing the product that they want. So another challenge, especially this is related to DevOps, is that earlier, when a project is supposed to deliver once a year or once 6 months, you doesn't need a dedicated engineer to focus on building and packaging this particular software. So normally all your developers will actually build the code. They will test on their individual piece only. But when they combine all these pieces, you need someone to basically integrate all these pieces and then make it as one single deployable package. Okay. So in that one single deployable package, we always call it as build and deployment actually. So traditionally, there will be one volunteer, maybe one of the senior leads will take that responsibility because it's once in 6 months or once in a year. They'll spend a week or so to build the entire project and then they will actually give it for testing. But as the development accelerated, okay, like you are now more into agile development methodology, which is basically a sprint means 2 to 4 weeks in agile development methodology. Okay. So in agile development methodology, any feature that you're supposed to deliver must be delivered in that 2 to 4 week sprint. Okay. In this kind of a challenging environment, imagine within the 2 to 4 weeks, if you want to deliver something, how many iterations of testing it has to go. Let's say developers have completed their code, you have integrated. Obviously, the testing will identify some issues. It will go back to the developers and there will be another issue later. So another 4 or 5 iterations will be done before it actually gets delivered to the final release. So in order to do these iterations, every time there is an iteration, you need to do a fresh build and a package. Therefore, there is a need for a dedicated focus on that particular area. Traditionally, we have been calling that as build and release engineers. Now we call them as DevOps engineers. So DevOps basically came out of this entire agile concept of fail fast. So why agile is required as a standard development methodology is that, okay, we can fail fast. To the same example earlier I was giving, let's say you wanted to deliver a car to your customer, okay? You can't deliver, so you can't wait in the standard waterfall methodology like, okay, after 2 years, I will deliver your car, okay? Then probably if the customer is asking for a Mercedes, you might be delivering a Nano, okay? But then the customer will be not happy, will not be definitely happy, and also it will be a surprise to the customer also, okay? After 2 years. Let's say you follow something else like spiral model or any other rapid development models. Even then, you can't deliver the whole product at once. Maybe you will be delivering, as I mentioned, one part at a time of your car, okay, in that methodology. But whereas agile methodology suggests, okay, your customer asked for a supercar, okay, but what you can start with, deliver a basic car first. Okay. In your first sprint, you will deliver a basic cars, which is operational and that must be working independently. Okay. It must be testable and working independently. That's the rule. So in the first sprint, you will deliver a small component. You will try to enhance it every sprint. So you will add additional features every sprint onto this basic car. So that's how the agile methodology works. So in this entire journey, every sprint is 2 to 4 weeks. Therefore, you will go through multiple iterations of your build and packaging. Therefore, you need a dedicated DevOps engineer. So that is the importance of DevOps engineer from a role perspective. And another importance is basically, traditionally, we have obviously the development team builds something, they just throw it over the wall to the testing team. And what they are going to do is they'll just test and then they'll actually put some bugs into the system or actually are some issues into the system. Again, development will come and then probably they'll ask for a lot of clarifications and all this stuff. So it's always a back and forth thing. And the collaboration between the dev and test, okay, and later the operations team, which is the production support team, is not that great. So DevOps team came in as a role, and also they are supposed to be the collaborators with all these teams as well. So they are supposed to collaborate with the dev teams, their testing teams, and also operations teams. So that is one of the importance of this particular role. So when the DevOps got introduced, that's one of the major advantages actually happening. So this helped us to really fail forward with all the changes that we have been doing and also truly implement agile methodologies within your development practices. Okay, so that's on the DevOps. So later what happened was DevOps is good. So you're able to deliver all your features faster within your standard sprint cycles, whatever your sprint cycle that you have set, be it 2 weeks, 4 weeks, or whatever it is. Okay, but there is a primary element of security that have been missing. Okay, so security always has been taken as an afterthought. So let's say you have built your product, then there will be actually a security team that will be scanning your code or that will be looking into all the security aspects or that will be looking at your architecture and then identifying, oh, you have these security gaps, please go and fix it. Okay, then only will allow you to production, or maybe sometimes they'll be doing it on a frequency basis rather than for every release. So you are compliant for a lot of things, but not secure in that way. Therefore, the shifting left, this entire security thought came up, and that's when we thought, okay, how can we integrate security into your DevOps pipeline? So that's one of the concepts that we're going to discuss in detail also. Okay, and now another important thing, today's topic is more on privacy. Okay, so there are a lot of regulatory requirements on how to handle the data that you are consuming within your application. And you need to deal with a lot of privacy regulations, what type of data you are consuming and how you are storing and how you are securing the data so that that's not misused for any customer, okay, that you're doing business with. So of course, even the privacy was dealt as an after fact initially, okay, but now it has become an essential part in every release and every phase that you need to make sure the privacy is validated and vetted, okay, before it gets to the next cycle. Okay, so those are the four areas that actually that we're going to talk about, primarily on the last one, DevSec PrivOps, which is a combination of security and privacy into DevOps pipeline. So that's a I think it's a long debrief of okay the development methodologies and how DevOps has evolved and how security and privacy is now becoming an integral part of DevOps. So I'll take a pause here, okay, and then actually wanted to take any questions or wanted to have some quick check, okay, with all of you, okay, on something. Any questions from anyone? Okay, so I want to ask a question then. What does security mean for you? You can type in the Teams chat, and you can in your own words. What do you mean by security? Anyone? There are no right answers for this, by the way. Okay, I see some Murli already responding. Data protection. Okay, that's good. What else? Anything else apart from data protection? Anyone? Okay, so security and privacy are interrelated. Okay, now I see a lot of responses. Okay, good. To secure the sensitive data, that's good. So protecting data from internal and external threats, for example, unauthorized access or any breaches, mostly technical and procedural measures to protect data. Thanks, Saina. Having our own privacy to hide something securely, that's good. State of being or feeling secure, freedom from fear, anxiety, danger, doubt, etc. State a sense of safety or certainty. Thanks, Sridevi. And ensuring the code software components that build the code pipelines infra and entire application that is built is secure. Okay, Sarath, thanks a lot. Okay, that's actually a very good statement. Okay, good. So thanks for the responses. Definitely security is one of the key aspects, okay, that we're going to discuss today. Okay, so today's discussion is more on the application security. Even the hackathon that we're targeting is in the AppSec, right? Okay, so security can be in different layers. Okay, like it can be a physical security. That's when you're getting into your office or when you're getting into your college. Okay, it can be starting from your physical security where you will be allowed only when you're authorized or when you have a proper identity and authorization. Okay, at the same time, it can be a infrastructure security where there is an infrastructure that you're supposed to use for your application, and also it can be a network security or it can be an application security as well. Okay, so today's focus is primarily on the application security. So let's say you are building an application, or the same example that earlier, you have built a product. How are we going to make sure it is functional? That's done. Okay, so as long as you deliver what are the features required by your customer, it is functional, or so as per the requirements of your customer. But is it secure? So what does it mean? Can anyone easily come and tamper your application? Okay, so let's say you have a web application. Okay, and can anyone impersonate that application, or can anyone just get into your website? Okay, and also maybe tamper some data or like steal the data and all these things. There will be a lot of threat actors who are trying to do this, right? So how can you secure your application to make sure none of these folks can actually enter, and also all the known vulnerabilities are closed appropriately for your application? So we're going to focus on those areas a little bit. And same thing, you can apply the same security concepts to other areas as well. Okay, how are we going to leverage various techniques to really secure our product? So privacy on the other side, okay, it's more on the interchangeable based on the statements I've been seeing. Okay, it's mostly on privacy of the individuals or the customers using your product. Let's say I'm your customer. Okay, I'm actually leveraging one of the products that you have built. It is delivering all the features I need. It is very interactive, is user friendly, everything is great, and it is secure also. I am sure that no one can actually get into that particular product and all. But at the same time, the data I'm giving it to you are the details that you're capturing from me. How are we making sure that data is secure? Okay, so that means not only secure, and how are you making sure that is not misutilized even for the internal purposes sometimes? And at the same time, there are some regulations that say you need to capture the minimal data that is required, and also you need to secure the data. Any misuse of that particular data, you are liable for any penalties by the regulations. Okay, so as a customer, are you interested in my privacy, in my protection? Okay, nowadays you might be seeing a lot of things. Okay, you will get some spam calls every day, right? Okay, like I'm getting like 10 to 15 spam calls, okay, saying that either you need this loan or you need that. Sometimes there will be some kind of a uh, wishing attacks or smishing attacks, trying to basically people sending SMS and then asking us to click on particular link. These are all because somebody has taken our phone numbers, maybe along with our names and date of birth sometimes, okay, and they're trying to use that particular data, okay, either for their marketing, for the loans or other stuff, or sometimes to actually get hold of your details or accounts and all other stuff actually, which is more dangerous. Therefore, the privacy is definitely one of the key elements that we have to focus on. And we are going to discuss on how we can actually make sure that privacy is integrated into our DevOps pipeline, okay? And what are the various things that we can focus on. Good. So let's get back to our presentation, okay? So some of the key components, as we already discussed, okay, of DevSec PrivOps is one is your key development, which is how are we delivering your features? At the same time, how fast you are able to deliver your features. This is where your continuous integration and continuous deployment pipeline will come into picture. So just wanted to give a quick understanding of what is continuous integration. If you are hearing this for the first time, okay. So we have a standard development methodology, right? We talked about only the phases, like after development, it will be directly testing. That's not true always, because between the development and the testing, there is actually a lot of things that we need to do to make sure the code is ready to test. So let's say as a developer, I have built my code like that. Whoever in my team, we have built our code independently. Okay. We have kept our code into one of our version control tools. From there, what we need to do is, of course, we need to pick all that code, and then we need to do a compilation and build of that code based on whatever the language you're using. You can use the appropriate tools. Okay. And at the same time, we need to package that code as a single deployable package. Okay. So this process is basically your regular build release process, okay, or your standard process. But at the same, once you build the code, then it will be tested in various environments, okay. And those environments, as I mentioned earlier, it can be first integration environment and then a user acceptance environment. And in between, based on your need, you can add performance, you can add regression, you can add a lot of QA environments based on what type of product you are building and how important it is for you to test all these environments, right? So accordingly, you will be able to test all these things. So the continuous integration is basically, there should not be any manual dependency of all these phases. Normally, when the developers are done checking in, they will say, oh, I'm done with my code. Now you can start building your code. Obviously, there will be a build engineer who will pick the code, put it in one place, build that, package it, and then will deploy into the integration environment. If the integration environment, somebody will test it. If the integration fails, again, it will go back to the development team, and then they'll try to fix all these things on a regular basis. If the integration is successful, then we will deploy the same package into the next environment, which usually will be UAT, or it can be anything else also. So then we'll have some end users come and test it in UAT. The iteration will be keep on going. But if this entire cycle is manual, that is some person doing the build, some person doing the deployment and doing the testing and all, then it's going to take a lot of time, especially in the agile, as I mentioned earlier. If it is 2 to 4 weeks for your entire sprint cycle, then it is not possible to have a manual person doing all this stuff. So the answer is we need to automate all this stuff. Okay. And that's where the DevOps actually will kick in. So the continuous integration is basically integration of the code is basically from the individual developers to one single deployable package. This entire process is called integration. But if it is happening manual, it is not called continuous integration. But if it is happening, the moment the developer commits their code, this entire pipeline is kicking in, like the build, package, and deployment, all these things are kicking in. Then that is called continuous integration. And there are various tools in the market. Okay, you can search in Google and Wikipedia. You will get hundreds of tools which are good in continuous integration. So that entire process will be able to automate with the continuous integration tool. Okay, so that we can remove the manual dependency. Same thing with continuous deployment. The continuous deployment is basically how can we deploy the same package into various environments up to production. Normally production, we call it as a controlled environment where you will have some approvals required before you go to production. Okay, but even if production can go automatically deployment done in production also with these automatic approval gateways, okay, then it is called continuous deployment. So there is another term called continuous delivery. The difference between continuous deployment and delivery is only that approval gateway. If your deployment is not happening automatically even into production, but there is a manual toll gate, there is a manual gate that is required, some verification, and then someone need to manually approve or manually push a button, then it is called continuous delivery, not a continuous deployment. Okay, that's the key concept of CI/CD. I see someone pinging, let me check. Is anyone pinging me, or is it like, okay, no, that's fine. Okay, so that's about CI/CD. Okay, code quality is another thing that we will be focusing on. So what do you mean by code quality? See, code quality is around, okay, you can develop a very good code. A lot of times as a developer, we'll focus only on, is my feature working or not? Okay, so I'm sure you might be already practicing a lot of code. Okay, how many times we are focused only on, okay, this is my requirement, I need to just stick to the requirement and I need to develop a code. And in that particular code, we will sometimes we'll keep a lot of objects open without closing them. That's actually an opportunity for someone, a threat actor, to really come and then tackle your applications. Okay, so how are we making sure your code is of good quality? So there are some tools we can leverage them to scan your code and then tell what is your code quality percentage. Okay, so that's another thing that we need to focus on, code quality. So from a security perspective, okay, we need to look at how are we integrating security into the pipeline, and also how can we automate that entire process. Okay, so we will talk a little detail on that one. And at the same time, not only security, so security in the sense, it will not scan only for your code quality, it will scan, is there any vulnerable components that you're using, or are you using any code that probably will open up for any SQL injections. Okay, something like that, we will make sure all the code is scanned. Okay, and also this entire process will be integrated into the DevOps pipeline. Same thing on privacy. Some of the things that we need to look at is the data protection and access control, two important things. Okay, so the data protection is more around how are you handling the data within your application. Okay, let's say you consume data from either a previous application that's calling you, or from, of course, through an API or through your database, right? But how are you handling this data for your, of course, you will do your own business logic on this particular data. But after that, are we really basically closing this data objects, whatever you are using, or also are you trying to make sure this data is not available or not accessible? Okay, are you trying to use the appropriate methods in your language, whatever the language you're using? So to make sure this data layer is completely protected. That's one area that we need to focus. Another one is the access control for your entire application itself. So let's say you have an application which handles a lot of your client data or customer data. And if anyone can log into that particular application, can easily get into that application, then there is always a chance that, okay, your customer data will be misused. Okay, either they'll use it for marketing purposes, or sometimes they'll try to manipulate the data also. Okay, so you need to make sure you have a proper access controls. Okay, you need to have proper authentication, sometimes multi-factor authentication based on the severity and other stuff. Okay, so those are the two areas that we'll be focusing on. And another thing is, once your application is done, ready, deployed, it's secured, privacy, all is taken care, there is always a chance that once it is into production, there will be some issues with your application. So how are you going to handle that particular thing? That is the operations part, which is you need to have a proper monitoring and logging, and also you need to have a proper incident response. Okay, so that you can react fast. Even though you can't prevent, you can react fast, and also you'll be able to resolve it faster. This is where the MTTRs, mean time to resolution, will be tied up. How fast you resolve a particular incident. Okay, so and also how can you avoid the incident to happen also. That's a major thing that you need to focus on. And most important part, even though the individual teams are going to focus on, okay, development, security, privacy, and also the operations, the most important part is the collaboration between all these teams. So how are you collaborating? Let's say there is an incident. Okay, so how are the operations team first engaging the right teams into picture? Okay, so if it's a security related incident, are they really basically involving security team? And is there any data issue that's happening? Okay, are they really involving these privacy teams? And also, if there's any code issue, are they involving development team, and vice versa? Okay, so development team can't assume that, okay, my production environment is similar to my lower environment, okay, or my dev environment. So they need to make sure the environment consistency is there. Of course, now we have containerization and also all this stuff, but still they need to make sure whatever they are developing is going to work in production. Okay, so these kind of checks and also the collaboration is very, very important. We can leverage all the various tools and the components available, okay, for collaboration. But it's end of the day, it's the key factor is how these teams collaborate for a successful implementation of DevSecOps. Okay, so that's the key components. Some of the key principles, if you want to implement DevSecOps or DevSecPrivOps, actually, some of the key things that you need to focus on, you need to have a mindset of shift lefting security and privacy. As we discussed earlier, security and privacy is always considered as an afterthought after the development or after your release. That is not going to help you much. It will make you compliant, but it will not make you secure. So how can we make sure we shift left security? That means we will think about security and privacy when we are designing your application or when you're architecting the application itself. Okay, so you might have heard these terms called secure from start. Okay, and also privacy by design. Okay, so these are the terms that actually make sure that, okay, we are thinking about security and privacy of our applications early in the life cycle itself. Then the another important factor is the more manual dependency in these aspects. One, it is going to delay all this process a lot. Let's say you have an application that you're ready to deploy to production, but your security team and privacy team need a couple of weeks to validate the code or validate the package. Then obviously it is going to impact, okay, your deliverable or your release. Okay, so that's where the automation of these things is very, very important. Okay, so we need to focus a lot on the automation. And as I mentioned earlier, collaboration is one of the key. Using the right tools to collaborate is also very, very important. So another factor we have been talking about is the compliance. Okay, so what is compliance in general? Based on which business you are, that particular industry will have some regulators. Those regulators will set some guidelines and rules. So you need to comply with those rules and guidelines. Okay, so how are we going to make sure while you develop this application, which is having all the features, which is secure, which is taking care of privacy and all these things, but you need to be compliant with all these regulations also. Like, for example, some of the privacy bills say that, okay, you need to store the data of the individual that is operating from a country within the same country. Okay, so let's say you have a global application, okay, that is used by like 10 different countries, but these customers are from 10 different countries. You need to make sure you are complying with the local regulations from these countries when you have these customers. Okay. So how are we going to make sure you get all these guidelines and rules and make sure they're embedded into your pipeline? Okay. So, or you have a proper valid and check mechanism that these are all compliant or not. Okay. So another thing is that continuous monitoring. It's not just you will be receiving an alert when there's something goes wrong in your application, but you need to have a proper continuous monitoring also. You need to leverage the right tools for that. Okay. And now, how are we going to make improvements on your regular? One is application stability, second one is the security, and also other aspects of the overall application issues, right? So those are the things that you need to look at. And the most important thing is the feedback. So how are you collecting the feedback? What are you learning from your previous mistakes that you have done or the previous incidents that happened? Are you doing a postmortem review of your incidents? And also, are we doing a root cause analysis? And are you converting those root cause analysis in some specific actions? Do you have an action owner defined? And how are we making sure those things are not reoccurring again? Those are the key principles that you need to follow if you want to implement a successful DevSecOps. Okay, so why is it important actually? So what if we don't have DevSecOps? Few things we have already discussed. It's basically going to delay your ability to deliver things faster, and also it's going to have a lot of issues with your compliance and regulators. And obviously, sometimes it may probably shut down your entire business also if one security incident happen. Okay, and you might have seen some recent such scenarios as well, right? I don't want to name anyone, but yeah, you can check the news. Okay, so from a benefits perspective, of course, it's actually going to have enhanced security in the form of how we are going to proactively manage the threats that we are going to have for our applications in the form of vulnerability management, other stuff. And also, how can we reduce the overall attack surface? Basically, I think you're all cyber students, you are well aware of what is attack surface. It's around, okay, what kind of threats that we can have and what kind of techniques that the threat actors are using, and how are we going to reduce, okay, our vulnerability to those kind of threats, okay? And another thing is the improved privacy, which is actually going to help with first primarily the regulatory compliance. So you need to comply with these rules. Therefore, the privacy is the most important thing. And at the same time, you have your enhanced data protection. It's not only about to be compliant. You as a company or individual, you need to make sure whatever the data you're consuming is in a secured fashion, stored in a secure fashion. So that means you're protecting the data. Okay. And the most important thing is if all these things is automated, as we talked about in the previous section, okay, automation is one of the key things. You will have a faster time to market. That means you'll be able to deliver whatever you have developed, okay, very fast into the market. And also you will fail fast. Okay, that means something goes wrong. For example, one of the features is not working well. You will be able to realize it very fast, and then you'll be able to course correct it immediately. Okay, and because of this, your downtime in production, let's say your application is down in production, okay, and you wanted to make sure your downtime is low. Obviously, let's say you have 1 million customers, okay, and you have a downtime of even for an hour. That's actually a huge impact on your application, right? So how can you reduce the downtime? So do you have proper resiliency, okay, or can you make the changes faster? All these things will matter. So we will have those benefits as well because of this. And of course, the cultural benefit is mostly on the collaboration and communication, how it will increase the communication and collaboration between the teams, okay? Especially before this, they were actually on a siloed working model, and they don't even know each other, okay? Those kind of things. And cost efficiency is actually a byproduct. Of course, by automating all these things, by implementing all these things, there's a lot of manual dependency that is reduced, and in turn will actually give you cost efficiency. And also it will actually help you to reduce the human errors. Okay, so a lot of times you might have seen this happened because of a human error. Somebody was supposed to follow a particular procedure, they did not, or they actually overlooked it, and that's when these kind of issues happen. So the automation and the DevSecOps implementation is actually going to reduce those kind of human errors also, and it eventually reduces rework and other stuff. Okay. Of course, along with the benefits, there are some challenges as well. Okay. To implement DevSecPrivops. Okay. One of the key challenges is that the cultural shift. So this concept of DevSecPrivops is actually prevalent in some areas, but still I don't think it's like very well utilized in the industry yet. Okay, especially the security and privacy part. DevOps, it's been there for quite some time. Especially the security privacy part, it still need to be implemented at a large scale. And also the end-to-end DevOps implementation is very, very important. So it's a cultural shift. A lot of folks are still following the traditional development methodology, still using the build and release engineering team, still using standard QA teams and all this stuff. So it needs to change, a huge shift from a cultural perspective. And one of the major challenges is that you will have n number of tools in the market for each of these areas: development, security, privacy, and even for continuous integration, continuous deployment, all these things. So how are we going to make sure all these tools are integratable? Okay, or whatever the tool that you want, okay, how can you simply integrate? Of course, there are some good techniques that you can use. There are some scripts that you can leverage to integrate these tools. And a lot of APIs are nowadays available. It's actually very easy to integrate these tools. That's actually not a big challenge, but definitely one of the challenge, especially when you are a new, basically something that you're trying for the first time, this kind of implementation. And another major thing is the skill gap. This is actually going to be a big advantage, some of you, okay? If you are actually someone who's ahead of these particular learnings, okay, to close that skill gap also. So we have a huge skill gap in the industry, that someone who knows end to end, who can look at all these tools and understands these tools and integrate them in a secure way to make sure the things are delivered in a faster phase end to end. So that's actually a very niche skill nowadays, okay? And then we need to see how the skill gaps are closed. And thanks to DSCI and CCOE, this is one of their efforts to really close these gaps. Okay. So good. Okay, I'll take a quick pause and then maybe I'll ask some more questions. Okay, if you're okay. Any other questions from anyone? Okay, anything that we can take, or maybe you can suggest if I need to go slow. Okay, we are having probably another 25 minutes. Okay, but we can actually see how it goes based on your questions and all. Any questions from anyone?
Yeah, yes, Venkat, I have one quick question here. So, I mean, as you said, and there is a skill gap in DevSecOps along with the privacy also. So, is there any roadmap in the future? Those who have the DevOps expertise with the security and privacy knowledge to fill into those skill gaps. So, what do you suggest here?
Yeah, so definitely, Prabhakar. I think that's a very, very good question. We do have some DevOps folks in the industry, but even DevOps itself is now again a niche skill. And if you look at the top 10 technology trends, DevOps is one of that. Okay, right. Even in 2024. Okay, so in fact, if you can look at my career, I'm one of the best example. I have been practicing DevOps for 15 years, and into security last 4 or 5 years. Okay, and handling privacy also. So definitely there will be more opportunities for DevOps folks who have a good understanding of security and privacy. But traditionally, these teams are operating in silos. Okay, so understanding what the other person is doing is very, very important. Collaborating with them, okay, and talking to them, and also understanding what kind of tools that they use, what does it mean for them, what kind of process that they follow. And then as a DevOps engineer, you can think, oh, how can you automate that entire process? Okay, that way it will open up more opportunities for sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, hi Venkat, this is Sarath.
Yeah, Sarath.
Yeah, I just wanted to get a little more information on what exactly privacy that can be implemented within the DevSecOps pipelines, in a practical way. So if you could just put some information.
What kind of privacy elements that can be implemented? Okay, that's what your question is, right?
Yes, right.
Okay. We have few things, but next few slides is going to answer that. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
If that
Yeah,
doesn't answer,
that's fine.
please ping me, and then I'll be able to cover that also. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Good. Thanks, Sarath. Okay. So let's get back to our presentation. Okay. So some of the areas that we can focus, okay, is again the same thing. Okay. And here we'll be probably able to cover some of the questions that you have also. So in order to implement DevSecPrivOps, of course, you know the standard 4 parts. That's what the word says, right? Development, security, privacy, and operations. But within development, what are the areas that you can consider? What are the areas that you need to focus? For example, you need to start thinking of security and privacy right from the tools that you start using for your development. I did not call out few things like IDE and all, but even in your IDE, you can think of when I'm trying to do a code, okay, is that code just going to deliver the feature, or is that code is more compliant on my security aspects also? Or is it opening up any SQL injections, or it's opening up any open object issues, or is it dumping some cache somewhere which can be misutilized somewhere else? So these kind of aspects that we need to think. Okay, it's not just about the tooling; it's about the way you development also. So there's a concept called secure development actually. Okay, so how can you make sure whatever you're developing, okay, is in a secured fashion? So delivering the feature is nowadays like it's like a 20% of the job. Okay, anyone can do it. But how are we making sure all these other aspects are answered in whatever that you're delivering is more important. So in the development phase, we need to focus on few things, which is primarily what are the version control systems that you are using, okay, and how are we making sure you have a proper triggering mechanism, and also you have proper controls on those tools, and is it like a open source? Do you have a proper controls over that, or do you have any issues, okay, in that particular issue? All those things you need to look at. And also your continuous integration. So we did talk about what is continuous integration and what is continuous deployment already. Okay, so how are we leveraging these continuous integration tools? Okay, rather than making it as a after fact button click kind of continuous integration, how can we make sure there is a automated polling kind of an activity? Like when I say what is polling means, basically when a developer checks in or commits their code, it should trigger automatically your CI pipeline, automatically your build pipeline. That's what is called polling. It's basically polling is means basically it's checking if there is anything changed in my version control system. Okay. And then something similar, if the continuous integration is successful, the continuous deployment should pick it up and then start deploying your that single deployment package to all the test environments, including production. Okay. So you need to focus on these areas. How are you connecting the dots between these various systems and in a secure way? So that's about the development part. The security aspects, okay. So there are various things that you can check in the security, okay. So one is the standard static application security testing, okay, which is more around what's your code quality, what's your code coverage, and all these things, okay. And the second one is the dynamic application security testing, and it's again something similar around, okay, how are we making sure it's not about your compilation of the code, it's around in the runtime, okay, how your code is going to behave, okay. So what kind of issues it may generate in the runtime. So sometimes it may not be like you will not be able to see those scenarios in your development phase when you are testing it in your local, but when this particular piece of code is actually deployed onto your production, okay, which is basically going to work in tandem with a lot of other applications and components, okay, is it really going to behave the same, or is it going to maybe throw out some vulnerabilities? The another one is a software composition analysis, which is mostly around the vulnerabilities, okay. For example, you are using a dependency in your code, okay. So let's say you have a Java code which you are using one of the jar files, or you have a Python, you are using one of the libraries, okay. These are all called dependencies or libraries, right? Okay. So when you're using such dependencies and libraries, okay, how are we going to make sure that the version of that particular dependency or a particular component is not vulnerable? So we have, of course, a CVE database that's managed by the central teams, and also you can actually go and check this particular component, or you can leverage some of the third-party tools, okay, to scan your entire code where you're using these vulnerable components, and it will give you a report saying that, okay, these are all the vulnerable components you are using. These are the latest versions for them. You can use these latest versions, okay? Or you can actually change the component that you are using also, okay? So that's actually another area that you can test, okay? Make sure you are testing this also. And everything might be heard about log4j issue, right? Okay. So log4j has been used like for quite some time, almost 2 decades, okay? But all of a sudden, that log4j has become vulnerable, and it was reported. And every company took almost sometimes like it took some companies a year or two, okay, to really identify where all these vulnerable components are, wherever you are using log4j, and then go and fix them, okay? So that is a massive exercise that happened across the world, okay? So you need to look at those kind of aspects. And of course, in these vulnerable components also, some will be 0-day, where you can't compromise at any cost. You need to fix them immediately. Some will give you some leeway, like based on the rules that you have within your organization, you can take some time, okay? But end of the day, it's all about how are we going to focus on these vulnerable components, especially on the open sources that we are using left and right in our coding, okay? So another one actually that we need to look at is the container security, okay? The container security is more around, so of course, the reason for the containers, of course, is because of the environment drift that usually happens when you don't use containers. Usually when whatever the environment that you have in your testing environment may not be same in production, that the operating system, the version that they have used, and the components, libraries, everything probably will not be the same, okay, until you follow some standard builds, or you use something like IAC, okay? So to basically to solve that particular problem, containers came into picture. But how are we making sure? Container is more of a black box actually, okay? So container will not tell you what is inside, okay? So you just need to deploy your application into that container. If something is not working, probably you will take off the container and build a new container, okay? So the challenge with that is how can you basically make sure the containers are secure? So there are some tools, okay, that will actually help you to scan the containers also, okay, and you can develop some of your own algorithms to basically secure your containers, okay, and use some scripting languages to do that, okay. So those are the areas that we will be focusing, okay, of integrating into our pipeline, okay, static, dynamic, composition analysis, and container security. So coming to privacy, what are the things that we can focus on into the pipeline, the DevSecPrivOps pipeline? So one is data masking and anonymization, okay. So what do you mean by data masking actually? So let's say I have given my phone number, okay, in one of the websites, and that is calling a third-party application or an API, okay. Let's say I have given my PIN number, for example, or a PIN code or something, which is going to pull my address, okay, which based on a third-party application or anything like that, okay. So you are technically transmitting my data, okay, into a different application. You are capturing my data, but your application is not the one that's consuming it immediately. You are transmitting the data, okay, to a different application. But how securely you're transmitting? Are you converting this as a token and then giving it? Of course, the most secured. Or are you just blindly putting into your response response, and then putting the data into your API call? So that's actually going to be a challenge. So we need to look into the internals of your application, how you are handling your data. Are you masking your data? For example, if you given some social security number in US or a PAN number in India or Aadhaar number, these kind of things, how can you mask those details? And another thing is tagging this data with the person, right? Like for example, earlier I used to get a call from these marketings and spam calls. They don't know my name. They try to take my name after the conversation, okay? But nowadays, we are getting a call and they're addressing with my name. That means the data is going along with my name. This particular phone number belongs to this person, okay? The anonymization of the data is not happening in the application that you are sharing this data, okay? If the anonymization happens, what they're doing is basically the primary key holder or the primary person that owns this data, that will be swapped somewhere else. The entire anonymization is done, and then only you're transmitting the data, okay? And then you're only transmitting the data which is required, okay? And also in a secure way. So one of the things that we can do within our privacy aspect is data masking and anonymization. You can scan for these things, okay, whether the data is properly masked or not, or the anonymization is not done or not. Okay, that's one of the key areas of focus in privacy. And also privacy impact assessment. Okay, so let's say you have some data that's actually transmitting to your particular thing. So there will be something called PII data. Okay, so personal identification information. Okay, so in general, you're not supposed to disclose or share this particular data to anyone. Like even like in some of the setups, we are not even supposed to share your date of birth, not even phone number. For example, in some of the European countries, if you want to courier something, okay, you are not supposed to put your phone number. Okay, you just put what is the delivery address, not even the recipient's phone number also. Just put the address they're supposed to deliver. That's it. But in India, can you imagine, is it really possible to deliver something without the phone number? Okay. So that's some of the challenges that we need to address. So what will be the impact if you share a particular detail? Okay. So the privacy impact assessment would help you. Do you have an SSN it or a Aadhaar or a PAN number or your date of birth or your phone number? Some key elements which will actually help the threat actors to really get control of your accounts or your bankings and financial accounts or any such accounts actually. Okay, that's another thing. So third one is the consent management. It's more on the policies basically or the complaints. Okay, so when you are taking the data, you having my consent. If you observe earlier, there was a message when you logged in. Okay, uh, when I think Mitali started recording this particular session, there was a message at the top saying that by default, by joining into this particular meeting, your consent is given. Okay, so that means a consent management is also required. Okay, in order to make sure that okay, so let's say if I'm starting the presentation and then say I never realized that this presentation is getting recorded, but I have given already consent. That's why they're good. But if that consent was not taken, okay, they'll be in trouble. Okay, so these kind of things are more important. So to summarize, what can we handle in privacy? Data masking and anonymization, privacy impact assessment, what kind of impact it will have. Third is, did you take the consent or not? Okay, so these three things are actually most important in the privacy aspect. Okay, so next one is the operations part. Okay, let's say you have done the security privacy part and then you have delivered the code into production. But even in the production, there are a couple of things that you need to follow. So there will be some standard environments that you'll always have, but nowadays it's either cloud or you have your own private environments. The infrastructure as code is actually becoming very prevalent, predominantly because you are able to pull the environments dynamically, especially for your testing environments. Okay, you can pull a new environment altogether, something which is similar to what your development environment is. Okay, where you can test all your components easily. Okay, so infrastructure as code is basically you are going to dynamically create your infrastructure to test your application, to simplify the concept. Okay, so are you leveraging that? Otherwise, you're going to wait for an environment and then deploy this particular application. If there is a small drift in that particular environment or a config file changing in that environment, it will have an impact on your application. Okay, so which is out of your application's control. So second one is monitoring and logging. Okay, so first you need to make sure you have a proper logging mechanism within your application so that when there is an issue, you can actually go to the right level of debugging and then identify where the issue is. And also you need to have a proper monitoring of all your components in your application. And at the same time, you need to have an alerting mechanism also. Let's say something went wrong in my application. The operations team should receive an alert. Earlier, we used to have something called eyes on glass monitoring. What does eyes on glass monitoring means is that you will have a large dashboard. People will be staring at the dashboard for hours. Okay. When there is a red in the dashboard, they will be immediately alert and then see what happened. They'll go into the logs and then try to fix it. But that's actually like more completely manual way of actually monitoring. So now there are a lot of automated monitoring tools where it will send an automated alert actually. So if something goes wrong, I'll get a pager or I'll get a alert on my mobile or I'll get a voice automated call also sometimes. So accordingly, I'll be able to respond. So you need to have this proper monitoring and logging. So one of the things that we need to do it in the DevSec operations is how can we embed, basically creating the new environment with IAC, deploying these monitoring and logging components, or enabling those components, if not deploying, enabling those components also into our pipeline actually. And the other thing, important thing is how do you respond to the incidents? As we already talked about it, how fast you will be able to respond. So how can you respond faster? So in general, in the meantime to repair, that's what the total time that you have taken, okay, to resolve an incident. There will be 4 sections normally, okay. You have something called detection time, diagnosis time, okay, react and resolution time, basically response and basically resolution time. So the diagnosis time, okay, or the detection time are the most important things basically. So detection is, let's say there is an issue that started at 3 p.m. You couldn't detect that there is an issue up to 5 p.m. That means your detection window is 2 hours. Okay. Same thing at 5 p.m. you realize there's an issue, but where the issue is, to figure that out, it took another hour. Your diagnosis time is 1 hour. That is up to 6 p.m. It took almost 3 hours for you to identify that there is an issue and also to identify where the issue is. So the more that detection and diagnosis time window, your overall response and the overall MTT is going to go down, okay? And also your customers are going to suffer. Let's say you have an application which is like used by millions of users, okay? And millions of users down for that much amount of time, you can imagine what will be the customer impact, okay? So that's one of the most important aspects. But how can we help? How is DevOps or DevSecOps or DevSecPrivOps is going to help these incident responses? It's only the after the fact, right? But if you have proper alerting, triggering, and monitoring embedded into your pipeline, and also you have your all these components enabled, and a proper dashboarding is there, okay, then you will be able to react fast. The moment there is an issue, from my dashboard can clearly tell me, okay, where the issue is. That means my detection and diagnosis time are almost 0. Then I'll simply look at my response and then fix it actually, okay? So that's what the operations part is. And as we already discussed, some of the things that we definitely need to leverage is most on the communication and collaboration, okay? And another thing that I want to stress a little bit on is that compliance and governance. So a lot of these things that we do it for compliance, like even for the privacy, a lot of companies are still doing it only from a compliance standpoint. That means there are regulations. We need to make sure we are complying with all the regulations. That's the compliance management part, okay? But are we proactively doing, in addition to the compliance, some security aspects? I want to give some example. Let's say the same thing, vulnerability management scanning, okay? If you do it once in a set frequency, you are compliant, okay? Maybe once in some quarter, whatever the frequency is set by the regulators. If you're doing it, the security scanning of all your code, okay, in a particular frequency, you are compliant, but you will not be secure, because if there is a vulnerable component that just got introduced and that was already into the market, okay, that threat actors are already aware of, and the threat actors is trying to actually get into your application, you will not even realize till your next scan that there is a vulnerable component in my code and the threat actor is already trying to leverage it, okay, to get into my application, because your frequency of the scanning is maybe far apart from the efficiency of the threat actor actually, okay? So nowadays the threat actors are more aggressive, okay? They can actually get into your code within few days of the vulnerable component becoming public, okay? So that's one. Another thing is the policy as a code. Some of the things, especially the regulators and the policies, you can convert some of these policies into code as well, so that you can call this particular code and validate whether I am complying to this policy or not, okay? So any questions? I do see some things, okay? Anyone have any question? Okay. Okay, that's fine. Well, let's move on. I'm going to wrap up quickly, okay, for the remaining things. Want to give just one example how this entire flow works, and then probably we'll wrap up, okay? So There is a sample example workflow for DevSec PrivOps. Okay, look at the standard way of working, right? For example, a developer pushes the code to a repository, the first code commit. Okay, uh, they develop the code, they push it into repository. That triggers, okay, basically your CI pipeline, so continuous integration pipeline, and then it will basically call the continuous integration pipeline. It will basically call all your builds, packaging, and then it also deploys into your test environment, and it will run the unit tests also along with when it is actually packaging itself. Okay, then you will be able to do some actual tests, which is the static analysis. The standard CI pipeline, okay, will run some static code analysis, okay, and also it will do some dependency scanning. This is where the vulnerability scanning will happen. All the dependencies, as I mentioned, okay. So you can also scan your code for all your vulnerability. So if this particular scanning is happening after your production push, or maybe once in like maybe some set frequency, then that's not going to help you a lot. But this particular thing, it is scanning even before you deploy it actually. So this is actually going to help you to stop if there is any vulnerable component, to stop the deployment or stop the release. Okay. So dynamic testing is another thing that's actually going to test your environment, okay, test your application by running some of the dynamic testing scripts. Another one is the infrastructure provisioning, as I mentioned. Once all the tests are done, then you need to create a new environment, which is possible by IAC through using infra as code. Okay, and then you will actually deploy your application finally into the new environment that you have provisioned. Okay, and so up to the deployment is basically your pipeline will be done. Okay, then you will actually will be able to enable your monitoring tools, or sometimes will deploy monitoring tools through your standard visualization tools as well. Okay, and then those tools will also send alerting in case of any issues that are detected. And at the same time, you can also check for the compliances, okay, with your relevant regulatory requirements for your application. And you will get the notification, especially you can include whoever you want. It can be the development teams or the security teams or anyone in the operations teams that you wanted to include for these notifications. So eventually, so that's the overall flow, okay, how it works. Okay, so that's an example flow. And how are you going to measure the success of this? There are three different measures, which is one is the cultural. As I mentioned, you need to have a cultural mindset shift. Okay, people should accept this is actually going to really help, okay, to prevent a lot of security issues, privacy issues, and also it increases stability and all other aspects. Okay, and we need to have that mindset shift. Second one is you need to make sure there are some process changes, like cultural shifts in fast collaboration, shift-led security, and all these things. Some process changes or procedural changes. Okay, so we need to have within your organization or when you're implementing your applications, a proper policies and standards defined, and we need to make sure they're automated and they are probably need to be converted into coding. That means more implemented, okay, into your coding and how you can actually integrate these things into your regular monitoring. And you need to have a standard feedback loops so that any new changes, anything that's actually changing and anything not working, actually coming back to these measures. And the standard technical measures. Okay, the technical measures are more around the integration, which is more how much you have automated your CI/CD pipeline. Did you integrate your security and privacy into your pipeline? Are you using infra as code? Also, did you set up your incident response management team? And also, did you automate your all your compliance and governance? Do you have like something like policy as a code and all these things? So these are some of the measures that we can use. So that's it. I think we are on time. Okay, 2 minutes past, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you have. Okay.
Venkat, I have a question. Could you provide any examples of organizations or point to some existing case studies that have successfully implemented DevSec PrivOps?
So yeah, Sainam, a good question. Okay, I'll not be able. I don't want to name actually because I don't want to name any organization or anything. But there will be a lot of use cases that you will get. I can share it offline with you. Okay.
Okay.
So DevSec PrivOps, the successful implementation definitely is done by some organizations already. Okay. And some are actually on the journey. Okay. In fact, very few have done the complete end-to-end integration. Okay. So there are some companies that can actually do a release every 6 seconds, including all these checks, for example. Okay, there are some companies that will actually will be able to do a release on the business days actually. So when the business is live, they will be able to do this. So you might be already aware of some of the things like, okay, canary deployments, blue green deployments. These kind of concepts really help, okay, to implement these kind of things. Okay, so including all these aspects will definitely help. Okay, so I'll be able to share offline with you some of the use cases which are public in the industry. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. So any other questions from anyone? Okay, yeah, if we don't have any questions, thanks everyone for joining. Hope this session helped you. Okay, and feel free to reach out to me. I'm available on LinkedIn. I think you have my coordinates already. Okay, thanks a lot, Mithali and the DSCIs.
I have a question.
So we
I
have
have
one
a
question.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, since I'm working in SOC Security Operations Center, I'm working as a, I'm working for last 3 years in security operations. So how can, what are the things I can expect if I'll change my role to DevSecOps or DevSecOps PrivOps? So what are the benefits in comparison of SOC I will get in DevSecOps?
Okay. So the SOC operations is, you have already covered one part of the entire DevSec PrivOps, right? You are already well aware of operations. Okay. So you are well aware of what kind of incident that you will get, and some of the things that we talked about, like incident management, monitoring, logging, all these things you are well aware. What you need to do is shift left. Okay. So how will be this code coming to me? Okay. Before actually it gets deployed to production, what are the things that we need to do? Like what are the DevOps components that we need to look at? Okay, how the code is built, how security and privacy will be embedded into it. Okay, then you will have a better picture. So it's actually going to help you a lot in your role also, if you understand how these things are built and what kind of failure scenarios are there and what are the areas of opportunity. And one of the best ways for you would be look at your RCAs and the PMRs. Okay, that will actually help you to look at what are the root causes. How many times it's actually because of a code issue, how many times because of it is an infra issue. Okay, and how many times it's a human error kind of a thing. Okay, so those kind of things will definitely help you to understand the domain well. Okay, and you can learn that domain also. It will basically open up more opportunities for you in the wide spectrum.
Yeah, correct. So like with respect to career growth, so where will we where I can expect, like what are the approximate career growth I will get after getting into DevSecOps? Like since I have not worked in that area, so I have not fair idea on that part. So that's what I have a confusion.
Sure. So one of the things from a learning perspective, you can learn these tools. Okay. One of the myths is that, okay, you need to be a developer. You don't need to be a developer, but you need to understand the code well. Okay. So there is a slight difference. So let's say if you are a Java developer, you understand all the frameworks, how to code and all this stuff. But from a DevOps perspective, you need to understand how the Java works. Like how do you compile Java, how it depends on various components. And when this library is missing, what kind of errors it will give. When a class path is missing, what kind of errors it will give. Those kind of things you need to be well aware of. And you need to be well aware of these individual tools that you are going to integrate into the pipeline. Okay. So once you learn this, you will obviously become a DevOps engineer, and then that will open up more roles. And it is one of the top 10 areas, okay, in the tech trends recently in 2024 also.
So are we going to conduct any course or classes for this course? By your
That's
side,
the question to DSCI. That probably I'll defer to Mithali.
Okay.
Yes, sir, please.
Sure. Yes,
There's a
thank you
question to
very much,
Mithali.
Venkat, for
Yeah, thanks, SK. This it was a good question. Mithali, there's a question around, okay, are we planning to have more session on the individual components that we talked about, okay, in future?
Definitely, we have a one request. See, those who have registered with us, they got the opportunity to hear from Venkat Garu. So my request is you have our credentials. Otherwise, you can follow our LinkedIn page where we keep on posting about the sessions we have. We have a one more upcoming session. And as you know, this, as I briefed in the beginning, that it is a part of the Great EPSEC Hackathon for which we have an oral. I hope Venkat Garu to see you tomorrow. And
Yeah, I'll be
we are
there.
doing a couple of more activity, and we have one more program coming up, which is called IDCSS. It is an indoor cybersecurity school in which we are covering up certain parts of cybersecurity, starting from the foundation to the advanced level like law, forensic, and it is a little modular based course so that people at their interest and time and comfort they can take those courses or entire course. You can get a certificate. You can also suggest us as far as the students are there, the academic partner. We can look for a academic credit. Even just to tell you, Venkat Garu, we are in a conversation with Isaka, so that we can give CPE. So maybe you can share that with your colleagues, so that
Sure.
they can take the benefit of CPE. We'll share the details. So we are formalizing how we can maximize the benefit of the event which we are doing. So if you can express us what are, you can drop the message to us on our chat box on the LinkedIn that these are the particular sessions you're looking for, and like this PrivSec Spotlight, or we can do some specific session, and obviously the session which are related to Venkat Garu, we have to disturb him. Okay, sir, please give us time. People want to know. So please drop us the
Yeah,
detail, and
sure.
we will love to facilitate. We as a ecosystem enabler, cybersecurity center of excellence. Our objective is to how to strengthen the ecosystem of cybersecurity and privacy. So do let us know what you would love to hear, and do share your feedback with us. You can leave on a chat box, or also maybe you can drop us. What you say, your feedback, we would love to post it on our social media. Maybe I can just, if anyone would like to give any kind of a testimony, another 1 or 2 minute. Anyone would love to summarize the event, the experience? Sir, you want to say something, Venkat sir?
No. I was actually trying to click on the
Okay.
chat button, but I
Okay,
clicked
fine.
on a
Anyone
different
would
one.
like
Yeah.
to say, maybe one person who would like to share the excitement out of this event?
This was very informative, and I got the complete picture of DevSecOps. I have a lot of doubt regarding this curriculum, so that's what I got all of the clarity. That's what at the last I was thinking if any courses or classes will be conducted, so that will be helpful.
Sure. So we have this, as I told you, indoor the cybersecurity school in which we are covering certain parts of cybersecurity from foundation to advanced. So if there's some detailed topics which are looking underneath that, you can express to us so that that particular indoor the school with the one flagship program, established program where the faculty from India and Netherlands together they share their knowledge, and suppose in the DevSecOps we can take a help of JPMC, who's obviously Venkat sir, to see that how we can develop the support curriculum. So we are also in a discussion with a lot of colleges. As you know that BTech in cybersecurity is also being launched by many colleges. In a year or two, we will having the graduates who are cybersecurity BTech. So definitely your insight from the industry that this particular kind of a courses are required, we can do that so that they can directly take benefit from the industry body. Please drop us your feedback on the in the LinkedIn message. We would take it forward and we'll keep you posted about that. I guess so. All of you, thanks a lot for joining us today, and your thanks and your excitement, and you feel so this program is worth that itself is something will act as a testimony for this event. So I will not take more time of yours. Thanks a lot for joining us today, and be tuned to all our social media, whether it is a LinkedIn, Instagram. Those who are, if some still Gen Z are there, please share this thing with your college mates. So we are also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and also on YouTube. And those who missed this event, we are going to put the recording of this particular event on our YouTube. So please, if you feel so that you missed to hear or record something, you can hear that through our YouTube. Yes, sir.
Mithali, this is Prabhakar. You are continuously mentioning that college mates, but we are industry mates also here.
Yeah.
So we have the DevOps experience and DevSec experience, but not
Okay.
implementing that privacy and compliance. This was
Okay.
very good opportunity which we learn or incorporate in our DevOps and DevSecOps pipelines to incorporate privacy and compliance. So one more request from industry mates, not from
No. I said
college mates.
Instagram only, please. It was
Let
James. This is
Venkat Melam
up
to hire us.
No, that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is whatever is your request is, which is the industry specific industry, because the students are also going to become the part of industry. So please do let us know what are your expectation, how the cybersecurity ecosystem should function. Drop your feedback to us on our LinkedIn message. Follow us for more such interactive session. And as far as comes to the courses, we are also do a lot of sessions specific to a program, specific to organization, specific to an interest focus group also. So if we get to know that there are many people who are looking for something specific to dev or sec or privacy or something, we can do those kind of a session separately. So these are our flagship event through which we get some industry perspective, so that it increase to it give you that food for thought, the enlightenment. When the Venkat Garu speak about this DevSec, so you got to know that okay, there's something security element, there's some development element and all those things you got from basic to various level of understanding you got in this subject. And based on this feedback, we will do much more in future. In detail things we can work out. So you can drop your feedback to us. We will take it forward. We are not specific to the student. And just to tell you, those who are here, still here. So this CCU Center of Excellence actually has a 5 stakeholder. We start from the industry, the cybersecurity industry, where start from the large player who do the big operations in the cybersecurity, from the middle MSME and also the startup. And to startup, we support through our incubation program. So anyone who has a good idea, develop some POC, can also approach us to get more knowledge into that. Comes to the another stakeholder, we work close to the government, central and state, so that we understand what are how the governance is working, and so that other things are taken care. We work with the academia and industry, so that this industry, and come to another industry from like of Venkat Garu, JPMC, the user group, which deploy, you may have some separate operation, cybersecurity operation, but in large, the other user group who deploy the cybersecurity operation, so they all need the talent. So we work with the academia and research to upskill the talent workforce, so that they are up to the industry benchmark. And also we collaborate with the other thing. As we told that we are working with the Embassy of Netherlands, we work with the Cardiff University, UK. There are many other collaborations we have in India and abroad, so that we can put together the best practices in the ecosystem, not only in Hyderabad, India, across the globe. So do post us. So we feel so through this 5 stakeholder structure, we actually take care of everyone who is into the ecosystem of cybersecurity and privacy. So do let us know that how you would like to strengthen this further. This already is into the good hand when the people like Venkat Garu is there in the system, but we can do much more to increase, set the bar high. So do give your feedback. Sir, you have anything? If I mistakenly
No,
forget
I'm good,
anything.
Mithali. I think thanks a lot, everyone. Okay, thanks for this opportunity, Mithali. I would like to thank Dr. Sriram also for this opportunity. And
And
it's
sir
really
wanted
good to
to
interact with.
apologize from the bottom of heart that he would love to welcome you on this session, but he could not do that. So please consider he was
I
there
understand he's super
along with
busy for
us.
tomorrow's
Yeah.
event. Yeah.
Yes. Thanks a lot to all of you, and thanks a lot for joining us. And we hope to receive your feedback so that we can improvise on our sessions and programs upcoming, all what we do. Thanks a lot, and have a wonderful day and life ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.